And I would just like to ask the audience here, how many of you think that you're just going to age the way you age, it's hereditary, and you really can't do anything about it? Anybody think that? Good, because that is absolutely false. Even diseases today that we thought had this huge hereditary component, we're starting to see, and you're going to see in this presentation, how lifestyle issues really play a part in if you're going to express that gene or not for that particular pathology. You know, somebody heard recently, aging is like a current in a river. You know, it's unstoppable, it's coming at you, and if you don't swim against it, you're going to be carried downstream. All right, so I was sharing a moment with my wife the other day, and I said, you know, you are the most important thing to me, except of course for my health. And I'm like, oh God, mouth filter. You know, where is that when I need it? But you know, she's cool. She's just like, of course. You know, your health is number one. Don't freak out, Crystal. That was a simulation. Anyway, yeah, because it doesn't matter how many cases you're closing, how much money you're making, grinding away 50, 60 hours at your desk. If you lose your mobility, you're going to lose your health. And you're not going to have the time to enjoy that money at all, or the success that you've created for yourself. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And let me just say this, you know, prevention is not a sexy sell, right? My dentist and I always go back and forth about this. He's a patient of mine, I'm a patient of his. We both believe in it a lot. He's like, oh, if only people could see their gum line if they don't floss. And I'm like, yes, if only people could see their spine on x-ray, everybody would see a chiropractor. So I'm going to spice it up a little bit for you and put it in some different perspective. So really there is no fountain of youth, but we're going to talk about how you can just slow down that aging process on your body. Here we go, the Costa Concordia. Everybody know what ship that is, right? It just crashed recently. And already there's a documentary out about it. And the documentarian said, I kid you not, verbatim, the people who didn't have the mobility to scamper up the side of the ship as it was starting to list died. Okay? You want to keep your mobility. You know, I just finished my continuing education units, and there's 2 hours that are ethics and law. And it was particularly heavy this time in spotting senior abuse and how to report it. And let me just tell you this, the statistics are frightening, okay? And actually California leads the nation. 10.6% of all cases are out of California. You do not want to lose your mobility. So those are kind of drastic examples, but really what I'm talking about is, you know, when you get to be older, how you're taking care of yourself now is going to dictate how you age and what you can do later on. And if you can't take your dog to the beach, if you can't take your kids to the park, if you can't go and participate in the sports that you want to do, then you've lost your quality of life. Okay, so what are the most important factors that are going to influence the way you age? Are we going to age like this, or do you want to age like this? They don't even look like they're having a good time. I think there's balloons in the background. They look like, you know, that's not going to be me. All right, so how you take care of your body now will determine your mobility later, your quality of life later, and basically how well you age. So one of the biggest things is controlling your weight. So let me ask you this. Nancy, say you have a bicycle. We have 2 bicycles, they're the same. We have one person who's 120 pounds on one, we have a person who's 220 pounds on the other one. They ride the same distance. Which bicycle is going to break down faster?
With the heavier person.
The one with the heavier person, right? It's basic physics. I'm not being weightist here. It's just basic physics. The more weight you're carrying, the more mechanical load there is on your joints, the more friction there is on your joints, and the faster they're going to wear out. Being overweight makes you prone to diabetes, hypertension, and Alzheimer's. So this is a really interesting thing. I mean, how many people thought Alzheimer's was hereditary? Yeah, so did I. So did I until I did a bunch of research and I saw these studies. What they're finding now, okay, if one of your parents has Alzheimer's, you carry a 50% chance of picking up the APOE4 gene, which is a gene that's expressed for it. What they were seeing is that even in people who had that gene, a lot of them were not coming down with Alzheimer's, and people who had Alzheimer's, there was people who had Alzheimer's that didn't have that gene. And they're like, how does that happen when this disease is so clearly associated with a specific genetic component? And they determined it's lifestyle. There's actually 8 lifestyle issues around it. And we're going to talk about 2 of the biggest ones today. You know, 1 out of every 8 people in the United States, by the time they get to 65, is suffering from Alzheimer's. By the time you get to 85 years old, that shoots up to 45%. Well, ladies, guess what our life expectancy is, right? In the United States, it's around 84 years old, and a lot of us surpass that. And I just want you to think, like, this is a set, determined ratio. Every extra pound of fat you carry, 200 miles of capillaries to supply it. Now, that's pretty amazing. So let's think about your body as a city, and your heart as a water pump, okay, supplying the city. Now the city goes through suburban sprawl, okay, right around the middle. Okay? You know, that water pump didn't change. Now it's got to work really, really, really hard to supply everything, right? What do you think that's going to break down faster than the one that just has the normal dimensions to it? So I'm not a weight loss, you know, I was going to say, I'm not a weight loss expert, but you know, I kind of am. I've been there, okay? I've been 180 pounds, and I used to work out all the time. I couldn't have worked out anymore. You know, I was like this, you know, and, but I had that ring around the tire right there. And so these are some things, I don't have that anymore. I still work out with the fiend though, but these are the things that are really, really proven weight loss measures. Okay, and you know, you can hire somebody who's like a fitness and nutrition coach, and that works for a lot of people. For some people, that's not gonna work, and eating, like changing up their diet drastically is not gonna work. You know, I don't want to drink anything green, okay, unless it's a margarita, all right? So these are just really, really basic things, like writing down everything you eat in a day. It makes you very conscious about what you're putting in your mouth. By the way, this is not original material. I've pilfered this from different successful weight loss programs. Eating high volume, low density foods. So what does that mean? What do you think is going to keep you full longer? 100 calories of grapes or 100 calories of raisins? Anybody? The grapes. Basic physics, it takes up more volume in your stomach. So eating high volume foods are like big salads. Things that are big, they take a lot of volume, but they're not dense in calories. Joining a support group like Weight Watchers. I don't work for Weight Watchers, although I am a lifetimer. Yeah. Crystal's like, are you sure? And I get a check back from them. No, I don't. But you know, consistently when I've seen different medical institutions rate weight loss programs, Weight Watchers always comes in number 1 or number 2 to Jenny Craig. And usually it's number 1. And that's just because of the support systems. They have you eating the stuff that you normally eat anyway, just in smaller volumes. They just, you know, it's a really cool program and inexpensive. Cutting 100 calories a day. 100 calories is nothing. It's like a piece of bread. Right? But over a month, you're going to lose 5 pounds. So I'm not talking about making drastic changes to your diet. I'm just talking about making little tiny changes. This is a trick. This is a Weight Watchers trick. You come home, before you eat dinner, you drink a big pint of water. Guess what that does? Yeah, it takes up volume in your stomach, so you eat less.
Guinness as well.
Does it work for what?
Guinness.
Yes, it does. Yes, we'll meet later.
When you say low density food, do you mean low density in terms of mass or low density in terms of calories?
You know, that's a really good question, and those two are really tied together. Okay, because when you think about the mass, the density of a raisin, it's quite dense, right? But it's also packed with calories. So is cheese. Okay, cheese is really dense and it's really packed with calories. Versus something that's like a big spinach salad. So yeah, that's what I mean by high volume. And you know, it's hard to keep the weight off, especially as we get older. You know, you gotta try it. Our bodies are really smart, okay? And they try to conserve calories as we get older. And when you look at it, you just think of historically, this concept of having enough calories to eat. And the timeline of human existence is just this tiny little bit right here. Okay, I don't know how many of you had grandparents who lived through the Depression. I did. I'd hear their stories about, geez, my grandmother went 3 days without eating. My great-grandfather had fish every day. If they caught fish, they ate. If they didn't eat. You know what I mean? So that's just 2 generations removed from me. So you can see how recent of a concept this is for our bodies to have plentiful calories. So let's just look at this from a pure Darwinian survival of the fittest context. If we get older, we are less able to compete for resources, so our body holds on to the calories. Okay? It doesn't know that you can go get something, you can get a Jack in the Box burger for $1. Okay? It doesn't know that. Thank God it doesn't know. Hopefully your mind doesn't know that either. Okay, we're gonna talk about exercise because, as Crystal will tell you, I am a fitness fanatic. Yes, I do belong to 3 gyms, but they do different things in my life. What fits your busy schedule better? Exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? Okay, so this is a new study that just came out, and I found it fascinating because rarely do you get this amount of conclusiveness in a study. But when you can take 1,700 adults and then put them into groups of those who are not exercising, those who are exercising, and you can decrease your chance of getting Alzheimer's disease by 40%, that's significant. And I'm not talking about an hour at the gym. These people just did 15 minutes, 3 days a week, and they decreased their chance of getting Alzheimer's by 40%. The prevalence of Alzheimer's worldwide and what causes it in the United States is different than the rest of the world. Okay? In the rest of the world, the #1 predisposing factor for Alzheimer's is poor education. People who had not made it to secondary school. So maybe they've just made it to elementary school and not beyond that. That's pretty interesting when you think about it. And I think it's just because their brain had not developed the neural connections for retaining information, having to remember things, all the things that we get from our education here. So that's obviously not the case in the United States because we're a fairly educated people, right? But the #1 predisposing thing in the United States, anybody want to guess on this for a pass? Anybody want to guess on this?
Exercise.
Christian, you went. You know what I thought was really cool, this study, and this is a medical study by WebMD. They found that not only did people have more energy, but they had more energy than even people who are taking adult deficit disorder medication. Now, if you guys know those medications, they're like the closest thing you can buy to speed, right? Ritalin, Adderall, Strattera, all of them are like super, super speedy things. You know, I see a lot of people in the tech industry, a lot of young professionals who work for Google, Salesforce.com, Adobe, and one of them was in my office recently, and he said, "Hey, Dr. D, you know what we call the double A's of happiness in the tech world?" And I'm like, "Do I want to hear this?" It's like Adderall and Ambien. I'm like, you know, it's like pharmaceutical companies are like the evil geniuses of our time. No surprise here, exercising is great for your heart, but why is that? You know, if you've ever seen heart tissue, like you've ever seen a heart, it is nothing but muscle. The whole thing is muscle with a few specialized nodes of cells that can conduct a lot of electricity. Every time you do cardio, you're working out the heart muscle, literally, just like working out biceps. And the heart muscle becomes very efficient, it becomes strong, and guess what? That water pump has to work less hard to push blood to the places it needs to. Okay, I just like this slide. I'm gonna buy this cream. No, this is exercise, okay? So just from an aesthetic point of view, exercise helps prevent wrinkles on your face. You're like, holy cow, how does that happen? Well, how many people have ever heard of the fact that smokers get more fine lines in their face? So yeah, what happens when people smoke, the nicotine causes the capillaries to constrict. So the blood is not getting to the tissues and the cells of the face. So then you don't have, the tissues aren't being fed, and people get the fine lines in their face. Well, what happens when you're on the treadmill? Your face is glowing hot, right? It's red. You know why? Because it's full of blood, because your body has pushed a bunch of blood up to your face. Okay, that's why people who exercise, they do age well. They look better. You know, they have less wrinkles in their face. They contain more of that youthful glow. Okay, what exercise should you be doing? Okay, and it's really the one that you're going to enjoy doing. What are you going to enjoy? Some people love to go to the gym. I love the gym. I think they're wonderful places. Some people are not gym people at all. Some people want to run on the beach with their dogs. Some people want to take ballroom dancing. I challenge you today, what's the one physical activity that brings you joy and happiness? Take that up as your physical exercise. Because if you don't, if you're forcing yourself to do something that you don't enjoy, it's just going to become one more chore in an endless day of chores. And you won't do it. And this is why people fall off their exercise programs. Because they didn't choose the thing that brought them joy to begin with.